If you ever line up a fruit stand by color, you'll notice something a bit weird. There's a ton of red, a ton of yellow, a ton of green, and quite a bit of purple. But when you get to blue, the row is pretty much empty. Yet the sky is blue, the sea is blue, butterflies and birds can glow with blue. So how come blue practically disappears when it comes to food? Let's bring out the most suspicious witness first, the blueberry. I mean, it's got blue right there in its name. But if you cut a blueberry open, the flesh usually isn't blue. It's kind of a pale, washed-out color. Squish it into juice and it looks more purplish red or deep purple. So the question is, where exactly is the blue hiding? The answer is in the skin. And to be more precise, it's in that super thin, whitish bloom on the outside of the skin. Think of it as a tiny, superfine, light sieve. A regular sieve sorts rice grains. This waxy, microscopic structure sorts light. It scatters some of the blue and ultraviolet light back toward our eyes, and that's what makes a blueberry look blue. Let's pause the analogy right here. A blueberry doesn't get its blue from blue flesh. It's a visual effect created by the pigments in the skin and those waxy crystals on the surface working together. And here's the first twist. Blue in nature doesn't always come from blue pigment. So can plants actually whip up a real blue pigment? They can, but it's a hassle. A lot of red, purple, and blue colors in plants are tied to a group of molecules called anthocyanins. You can think of them as color-changing ink inside plant cells. In a more acidic setting, they often look reddish. Change the conditions and they can shift toward purple, blue, or even get a bit unstable. But a metaphor isn't the same as the facts. More precisely, an anthocyanin's color is influenced by pH, metal ions, copigments, concentration, and the cell's internal environment. Getting it to show a clear, stable blue isn't as simple as pouring a little blue ink into the plant. You have to set up the whole chemical setup of that tiny cellular room just right. This explains the second problem. If blue flowers are already kind of rare, why are blue foods even rarer? Because food, especially fruit, is usually soft, full of water, and goes through ripening, rotting, and getting bitten into. It's not like a bird feather or a butterfly wing, which are built to keep up a precise microscopic structure over time. Imagine you build a tiny wall out of blocks that reflects only blue light. If the table keeps shaking and water is constantly soaking it, that wall is going to be really hard to keep perfect. Of course, nature pulls out a showstopper every now and then. There's an African fruit called Pollia condensata that's shiny like a metallic blue bead. Its blue doesn't come mainly from pigment, but from the way tiny structures in its cell walls reflect light. It's like it tucks a whole set of microscopic lenses into its skin. But this kind of example is very unusual and isn't your everyday blue food. So, the scarcity of blue foods isn't because nature can't do blue. Quite the opposite. Nature is great at blue. It uses sky scattering, feather microstructures, petal chemistry, and waxy fruit bloom to make it happen. The real issue is, in edible tissues, blue just isn't the easiest, most stable, or most cost-effective option. Reds, oranges, and yellows can come from lots of common pigments. Green comes from chlorophyll. Purple and blackish purple are relatively easy for anthocyanins to pull off, but a bright, stable, saturated blue needs much fussier conditions. Now, you might wonder, maybe animals just don't like blue food. That's an oversimplification. Different animals see the world in different colors. Birds, for example, can pick up ultraviolet details that we can't, so some blue or bluish-purple fruits might totally pop for them. But natural selection isn't after the prettiest color. It keeps whatever works well enough. If red signals I'm ripe to an animal, and deep purple can also attract seed-spreading critters, a plant doesn't necessarily need to take the chemical and structural risk of going full-on blue. So let's come back to the beginning. Why is blue so rare at the fruit stand? Not because nature forgot about blue, but because blue is just too picky. Sometimes it needs molecules that shift color. Sometimes it needs microscopic architecture. and sometimes it even has to match up with how animals see. The most ironic part, the blueberry, the blue food we're most familiar with, is kind of a little trick itself. It doesn't hide its blue in the flesh. It lays down a super thin coat on the surface that plays with light. So next time you look at a blueberry, keep this in mind. You're eating not just a fruit, but a tiny optical magic trick.